Hello.
You're trying to spotlight something? There's like a little,
I think, I don't.
All right. Are we ready to head over to the video?
No, not till Aaron. Well,
for the prelude.
yeah. No, Aaron will. Try to pin. Well, no, I can pin.
But you're pinning my video, which isn't there.
Okay, so let's take it.
So. Probably doing everything up there.
Okay, so now we don't.
So. Yeah, it's going to be on participants.
I'm confused.
yeah, usually it's like right there. Don't you go the arrow?
So why are we not getting the display on the screen? Move. Really going back now.
Well, but you're pinning the video that I'm not sending.
Oh.
I'm not sending video, I'm sharing content.
No problem.
Okay.
We're good. I don't know what's going on, but right now we're good. I don't want to touch them.
Okay, let it roll.
Need to do a few Saturday runs to figure these things out.
Yeah, probably. No, ahead of time, but there seems to be a curveball.
Always something.
We usually do well.
No, we should have a standard procedure. We know we're going to have to run the room. We know we're going to. These are all things we knew 3 months ago we were going to have to do. We should have standard procedures to do that. We always do this.
Wait now? Okay, so ready for the video. Tell me when you're ready.
Lines up.
Okay. It's like.
For all of you that are in the middle of a flashback at the moment, it is 2021. You're sitting in a church, and yes, you just heard the Chamber Brothers. Can this come down a little bit? Thank you. Our chalice lighting this morning is from my colleague Christine Robinson. Spirit of autumn, help us to live with grace, with the grace of falling leaves. The enthusiasm of the flaming aspens, with the serenity of old trees whose roots reach down deep into the earth. Spirit of autumn, help us to know that living and dying are one, that life is precious, that life is beautiful, that life is limited, that nothing good ever lasts. Spirit of autumn, help us to see in the ways of nature a way for ourselves. Amen.
If I could save time in a bottle. The first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, and just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, yet save every day like a treasure, and then and again I would spend them with you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with. If I had a box just for wishes, dreams that could never come true, the box would be empty except for the memory of how they were answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with.
Beloved, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. My name is Aaron Payson. I'm honored to be one of the ministers in this congregation, and I welcome you here this morning. We begin our time together by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, learn, and live and worship on the sea's ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people, who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. We are glad that you have joined us here this morning. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on ourselves and our own well-being, to discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world. As an act of solidarity with our children and those among us who have not yet been able to be vaccinated, we invite you all to wear a face mask. Masks should be placed over the nose and mouth and gently formed to the contour of the nose and chin. If you do not have a face mask, please speak to an usher who can provide you with one. The ushers can also provide you with large print orders of service and hymnals, as well as hearing devices and pew cushions for those of you who would find such helpful. Please see one of the greeters or ushers for locating any of those items. For those of you joining us online this morning, a special welcome to you. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better as you are able, please do list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Facebook and on Zoom, as well as being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel and our website worship archive. Closed captioning, I believe, is available for those that are on Facebook. We extend a special welcome to our newcomers this morning and invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews. You're welcome to drop that card in the offering plate or to give it to one of our ushers on your way out of the sanctuary. In a moment, we will be passing around our pew sheets and we invite all of you to sign in on one of the sheets. Please know that the information collected is for church purposes only. Due to the pandemic, we're foregoing the collection of children's change for change in person at this time. However, there is a basket next to the Joys and Sorrows candle bowl for those who would like to contribute change to assist with the church emergency fund this morning. Following the service this morning, you're invited to join us for a time of fellowship under our tent outside. If you are desirous of soup this morning, and I know at least one of the options is roasted butternut soup, which is a food group in the Payson household. I was a 110-pound weakling until I started to eat the butternut soup. For $4, and for those of you who are new with us this morning, please do receive your soup as our gift to you today. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. Our opening words this morning are by the poet Edna St. Vincent Millay. Now the autumn shutters in the rose's root, far and wide the ladders lean among the fruit. Now the autumn clambers up the trellised frame, and the rose remembers the dust from which it came. Brighter than the blossom on the rose's bough sits the wizened orange, bitter berry now. Beauty never slumbers, all is in her name, but the rose remembers the dust from which it came. Would you please join together in our opening hymn this morning, found in your gray hymnal number 101, Abide with Me. Please rise in body or in spirit.
The darkness
If you have not yet joined the choir, shame on you. That was probably the best rendition of that hymn that I have heard in years, which tells me you are all in good voice and need to be commended to Matt, who will take very good care of you. Our religious exploration moment this morning is, for those of you who missed the opportunity last week for us to celebrate the installation of our little library. You now see it in full operation at the base of our parking lot, the two yellow little house units filled both with books and with seeds. For those of you who have not yet toured the garden with our Garden On team, you need to understand that the Garden On team's mission is not just to create kind of the help to mold the sacred grounds of this property, but to encourage everyone to consider the ways in which native plant gardening might affect the spaces in our own homes and so forth. So there are seeds that are available in that small library, as well as information about the church and about the gardens. So please do take a look, and we are delighted that we were able to dedicate this space last week to Rita Pierce, beloved member of this congregation who died over a year ago. We were able to honor her life in this place, and we're so delighted and honored to continue to have the presence of her beloved husband, Tom, and their family, who lives at a distance, continues to keep contact here. So from our religious exploration program to you, we hope that our little library continues to serve the interests here. I will have one note related to that, which is please do not bring all of the books you do not want to our little library. And you know who you are. I'm speaking now specifically to my wife, who would like very much to see me bring all of my books to the little library, but that would be a mess. So Robin will be putting out the word when books are needed and the kinds of books that we're looking for to continue to advance, especially our ministries related to anti-oppression, anti-racism, and multicultural work. So stay tuned, and if you have questions about what's available or what she needs, please do direct them to Robin. And that concludes our religious exploration moment this morning. Our reading this morning are words by my colleague Elizabeth Strong. She writes, "We know that leaves are dying. We know that their blaze of beauty is in preparation for death. It is a time when we appreciate the effort of nature to rise above the ordinariness of life and death. It is a time when we visibly comprehend glory and wonder, and we worship with thanks. We feel now that the air is cool and crisp, or as my wife awoke this morning and exclaimed, 'Darn, it's cold.' We feel now a clearing from the skies of the heaviness of the hazes of summer. It is a time when we appreciate the crispness and sharpness of the realities of life and death. It is a time when we physically comprehend the relief that clarity and insight can bring, and we worship with thanks. We hear now the dry rustle of plants and grasses. We hear now a crackling from the earth that tells of the withering of the fullness of life. It is a time when we appreciate approaching rest from the frantic fullness. It is a time when we hear a different voice within and know that life is settling down for a well-deserved wintering. Let it be so within each of our lives. as we prepare for an autumn in our own life cycle. For we all need rest and respite if we are to understand and appreciate the rhythm of life in our soul that enables us to worship with thanks. We come once again to that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to share that which is symbolic of our own efforts, our own dreams, and our deep connection to this place and to this people. An offering that reminds us of the ongoing need for support for our ministry and missions, but more so for the ongoing service of this community to the community at large. So I invite those of you who are here to lean forward, pull the checkbook out of the pocket of the person sitting in front of you, write the check you have always wanted to write to this congregation, put a couple of extra zeros in it, and then hand it back to be signed. That's all I'm saying. This time the morning offering will be received. Now is that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to pause and consider what is deepest in our hearts and most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired or in the prospect of days to come. Joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this day to come forward, to in turn speak into the microphone, telling us first who you are so that those using our auditory enhancement devices and those online may come to know us better, and also to Light a candle if you so desire. Their joys or sorrows to be shared this day.
I'm in the back doing Facebook and come up with that. But today I asked Aaron if I could go first. What my job is as your affiliated community minister is to be chaplain to the colleges. Some of you may have heard on the news of our struggles at WPI. I just want to let you know that we have been working on this since before it happened, that on Thursday, I was honored to be able to lead a workshop on grief the very day that they heard of the fourth death. So I want you to know that we are covering this, and we are working on it, and I really appreciate everybody reaching out to me, of which there were several. We are going to be okay. We are caring for each other. We love each other, and we're going to have this. And part of that is why I'm wearing my shirt. There's a whole bunch of us that are trained in this, and we are working on it. But I am also here for you, because I know there are several of us here in our congregation that work at WPI. I'm here for you too. And as I said on Thursday, you are not alone. Thank you.
Cheryl and I didn't have this plan, but this is a bit of a follow-up. I don't work at WPI, and so maybe I don't have the right to be here this morning talking about this, but I was hit by a ton of bricks when I heard about this fourth person who has passed away. Friday night, Ken and I had the joy of taking our nephew out for dinner. He's here for 4 years, majoring in tennis at one of the local schools. And he is just a delight. And it's always a great joy to spend time with him. And I've been thinking, what is it that this young man either was born with or received when he was a child that those other 4 young people didn't get or don't have, or that we as a society haven't provided, or that we in higher education aren't providing. And it breaks my heart to think about those young people's families. My nephew will be having Thanksgiving with us this year, and I am just so excited about that. But I mourn deeply for the 4 families who won't have their child coming home. And I just can't stop thinking about this.
It's hard to come up here with a joy on a weekend like this where we're all thinking about loss of young people. But I have a joy, and my joy is, and I never thought I would think of it this way, daylight savings time. Because my mom was able to come to church today. She woke up early enough for me to bring her, and she's the oldest member of this church.
I'm Dave Showalter, and I'm going to shamelessly couch this announcement as a joy. So it's an absolute joy and privilege of mine to be a part of the 8th Principle Task Force. We're bringing the 8th Principle, which is about accountably dismantling racism and oppression in our community and in our congregation. So we're bringing that into our congregation. And we're having a summit a week from today on Zoom from 1 to 3. And the goal of the summit is really to involve at least one representative from all of the different groups in the church to talk about how we can live this eighth principle moving forward in all that we do. And so please sign up, whether you're a member of a particular group or want to represent just yourself. That's fine, of course, too. As I mentioned, it'll be on Zoom, and you can go to the recent news area of the church website and see it there, where you can register and sign up, and then you'll get the link. Also, please feel free to come to any one of us on the task force, myself, Rachel Keogh, Karen Stevenson, Evan Wilson, and Mara Pentlarge. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul, and I just remember my mom who passed away in 1982 on November 5th. She was 62, and next week it was her birthday, which is November 12th. But I've already lit a candle, so.
Hi, I'm Lynn Gostila. A sorrow, it will be 20 years on November 10th that my mother passed away. Couple joys. David and I are both boosted, so we're back in church this morning. And also that this week in the municipal elections of Worcester, a number of candidates who represent progressive values that this church supports were elected or re-elected for another term. So we were pleased about that.
Hi, my name is Todd. Tom Pierce. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. I want to thank everybody in the church and also the board for dedicating the roadside library to my wife, Rita. I felt kind of funny. I am very proud and I'm very happy. She taught Sunday school for a long time. But there just aren't enough labels or whatever, what do you call those things?
Plaques.
Plaques to cover everybody who deserves one. I'd just like to read a couple of names of people that I remembered when we had the ceremony last week, like Deb Bono and the Christmas pageants from a long time ago and teaching our kids, Nancy Hancock and Birgit Patterson for all the years that they spent trying to organize the RE committee, Bruce Lachey, for all the work he's done with the kids, Deb Selko, who's down at the Cape now, but she did a lot of, she was responsible for maintaining such a vigorous program. Brenda Thompson for music with the kids, and Ann Jasperson for all the work we did together on our youth group trips and things like that. These are names you probably don't know, or some of them, but if we were giving out plaques, they would have them. Thank you very much.
Morning, I'm Kim. I dress today in the spirit of Diwali for all of our Indian friends in the community, and for my dear friend Anisha, who we just lost last month. Diwali was her favorite holiday. She's also a Scorpio, and her birthday was 3 days ago, and my birthday's tomorrow, so I dress for her and in her memory.
And our hearts go out to the De Jong family this morning. Elizabeth De Jong and her daughter, Lindsay, had a very difficult weekend. Lindsay survived an overdose. A teenager who was very active in our youth group, and I applaud the courage of Elizabeth to speak openly about this, because so many of our families have been affected by this. We lost Sam McGann to an overdose a week ago. And so this is a reality that has touched us here in this sanctuary and touched many of our families. We're grateful that Lindsay has survived and is finding the help that she needs, and we know that Robin and the mentors and the advisors for the youth group will be talking with the youth group very sensitively about this this evening, so that they too might be able to express themselves and find healthful ways of responding to this reality that has plagued our colleges and our school systems and our families and our community at large. So much love to the De Jong family this morning as well, and to the McGann family. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come this day in order that we might remember those most vulnerable into the heart of the life that we share, helping us to remember that we can be a voice of healing and hope, a presence of courage, an embrace of healing, that we are, by our mere presence, helpful. We extend our sympathy and our sorrow and the hope of other days to those who grieve this morning. And we come with compassion in our hearts for those who continue to question. As we have experienced once again the turning of the season, let us be mindful of the power and potential we have as a people to respond to the turning in with a sense of legacy, gladness in our hearts for generations that have come before, and the ability to pull those spirits close to us so that we might again feel their embrace. Spirit of love, draw close to us this day as we once again get used to the darkness and learn how to shine as brightly as possible into every corner of the world. Amen. And blessed be. So I went for a walk the other day with Andy Hagedis, who many of you know in the congregation. Andy and Sue live up the hill from where my family and I live on the base of Airport Hill. It might be more accurate to describe it as Andy walked me, because Andy's been doing this kind of walking for a long time, and he took me up to areas that I had never explored that were close to the house. We walked up from where I live on Kinney Drive to the Cascades. Anyone been to the Cascades in Worcester? This extraordinary little patch just beyond the neighborhood on Cascade Road, where water comes trickling down from the park up above. And there are times when it is, in fact, simply a trickle. And there are times when it is water with intention. And we had arrived there after it had been raining for a little bit, so there was intention in that water, and there were people that were wandering up and down the fall on the pathways beside it, and they were just delighting in the sound and the scenery, all of the yellow and orange and gold leaves that were on the ground and above, and this water that was rushing toward Cook's Pond and the reservoirs and Tatnick Brook. It was a moment of pause for me, primarily to catch my breath, but it was also a sense that there was this juxtaposition between this water that had this intention to go somewhere, and the leaves and the environment, which were essentially simply falling into place. And I want to talk about the juxtaposition between these two things. And it became even more pronounced for me as we continued our walk, because I did not know that if you walk beyond the Cascades, you actually find yourself on an old road that leads back down to Olean Street, close to the, not far from the Holden Reservoirs. You can hardly tell that it's a road. You find pieces of asphalt amid the mud and the stone and the leaves. But then as you walk, you spy a long stone wall that someone at some time had placed there. And you knew that there had been a home beyond it at some point. And we spent a few minutes during our walk trying to find the old dog cemetery, and finally found it behind a house that was facing Olean Street, back beyond the shed of that home, behind trees. There were a half dozen of these wondrous little tombstones that were placed there. And it was one of those moments in time where you stop and you think about how sacred a place that was at one moment for a group of people who were trying to honor the life and legacy of their four-footed family members by having a place of memory, and that memory had kind of faded, and now you had to go look for it. I felt that way the first time that I visited Spider Gate Cemetery over off of 51, behind the airport. There is an old cemetery that is privately maintained by a family, not something that's visible. You have to know that it's there in order to go find it, and you're not supposed to be able to go there anymore.
We ministers have ways. But I think about this experience, especially during this time of year. I don't know how many of you have had this experience the last couple of weeks, but Kristen and I were talking in the car on the way to Charlie's football game yesterday, talking about the fact that we have felt more nostalgic over the last couple of weeks, more pining for our parents, people who have died, more about our history. And that's exactly what that walk in the woods was all about, despite the fact that I was being hurried along. We did take an opportunity to stop and to look at those things that hadn't been observed for a very long time. And it tells me something about the art of dealing
With
with
this time of the year, with the change in time, with the change in season. And I want to suggest to you that it involves two things this morning. It involves attention and it involves intention. Attention and intention. In order to understand this, we ought to start at the beginning. And when I say that, I mean we ought to go back to the first chapter of Genesis, where we read, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless, void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day." So this experience of lightness and darkness is embedded in the very DNA of our most sacred narratives. This in-between and discovering what it is that spans between these two things that is so much a part of our experience at this time of year is a quintessential part of the myth of humankind, or the mythos of humankind. I love what Sev Freeman writes about this. He says, "Everything begins with light, and light is the destiny of all things." Everything begins with light, and light is the destiny of all things. In the beginning, God created heavens and earth, and what is the first thing that was said? And that is, "Let there be light." Then he says, "But isn't it strange? What's the point of turning on the lights when there's nothing yet to see? And no one there to see it." So here's a secret, he says. The original Hebrew doesn't really read that way. It's better read that God was about to create heaven and earth, meaning before that had even started, at that point, he set a mandate. He said, "Let there be light." Or it said, "Let there be light," is probably more accurate. It set the purpose and meaning of everything about to be created. That which should be created should be light. Explains why after God creates each thing, God looks at it and says that it's good. Because each creation has its own way to shine that light. Once all is complete, then comes the frame, "All it is very good." And when you have many things each saying the same thing in its own way, and they're all in harmony, then it's beautiful, it's very good, it's the ultimate light, says Freeman. Then he says, it's just that for the ultimate light to shine, a story must first unfold. So our sages tell us this light was hidden away from time to come. Gradually, we learn how to uncover that hidden light within each event, object, or person that enters our lives. And here's another secret, a secret about secrets, he writes. The Hebrew word for secret, raz, has the same value numerically as the Hebrew word for light, ar. secrets and lights, he says, seem to be related. Because, and then he says, isn't that it's kind of puzzling, don't you think? Because a secret is something hidden and light is something that reveals the things that are hidden. The two words don't seem related. And then comes this. So this is the secret of life, that each thing holds its own secret. And this is how the story unfolds. Through our struggle with life and with the world, we crack its shell and we get to the secret out into the open. The secret of all darkness is that it desires to become light. The secret of all conscious beings is that they must perceive that light. The secret of all existence is to know that it emerges out of that which stands beyond existence. Now we're getting into mysticism, and I won't go there this morning because none of us have had enough coffee. But I want you to think about this in terms of the context that we have been exploring and hearing about this morning. What is it about life in this moment that seems so overwhelming that death is a welcome alternative for some? Actually, that's a misnomer, because suicide is not about death. Suicide is about pain. It's about unrelenting pain. And it is about the decision to deal with that pain in such a way where your life can be put at risk. But this notion that there is so much pain and the pain is so overwhelming that we cannot see the light through the darkness. We cannot see ourselves as being purposeful. And I want to suggest to those of you who work in higher education institutions and those of you who work in schools and those of you with children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews, that part of one of the most important things that we can do, and those of you who are therapists know this, is to rehearse with people how important they are to you, to the community, to the world, and to remind them that life does not end in this moment. That beyond this moment, beyond this trial, there will be other times. I had this moment with my own son last night. Belongs to a football team that lost again. They've won one game this season, and he has yet to get on the field. And in the middle of responding to this at the end of the game, when we were saying, "Where shall we meet you?" he writes in a text to his mother, "We really aren't that good." And I could hear in his text the pain of someone who's trying to figure out how to be in the world when the world is simply not going the way he so much wants it to be. It's one of those moments every one of us who are parents shudders. And I took a breath and I said to him, "This is not the only moment of meaning in your life. Goodness will come. You will be okay. You are okay. But you cannot allow this moment of feeling like defeat and failure to define your entire existence. You must allow it to be something that informs you, but not forms you." And then we found him, and he was with a friend, and he was just fine. Right? So, he was kind of like, we'll be lucky to have a coach tomorrow. Kind of a thing. And I think that was his concern because, they like their coach and they're worried. But it's this, if you think about this kind of minor scenario compared to the scenarios that our families have been facing for over a year, kids who are overwhelmed with school, kids who are feeling like they cannot learn the way that they're being asked to learn right now, right? Adults that are overwhelmed by the task of trying to work and to care for children at home, and all of the various challenges that we have had, we have been presented with this reality in a way that says, we are formed by this. Instead of understanding that any of these situations are situations that inform us but do not form us. Because they only form us if we give them that power. And here's the secret to this, right? And what I hoped that Charlie got without me saying it, and that is you have the ability to contextualize this experience in such a way that you actually learn from it instead of get overwhelmed by it. Time is about attention, recognizing what's happening, and it is about intention. It's about being able to place value where it is most valuable. To continue this through the lens of light and darkness, turn to Candace Kawatek from the Dayton Jewish Observer. She writes that creation began with an infinite divine light, according to the Torah's mystical interpretations found in Kabbalah, which is ancient Jewish mysticism. To create an empty space where physical and spiritual worlds could be created, God contracted the divine light and created vessels to hold its concentrated energy. Not strong enough, the vessels shattered, sending sparks of celestial light throughout the universe. This is Jewish mysticism, by the way. What does it sound like to you when you hear that creation was fundamentally the product of light not being able to be withheld, the energy of light not being able to be held within a vessel, and the vessel breaking and light shattering across the universe? That is the Big Bang in a mystical context. She writes, light expresses much more than an electromagnetic wavelength. We can shed light on something or bring something to light, enlighten someone, or see the light ourselves, or see someone or something in a new light. If something sees the light of day, it comes into existence or is made known to the public. Light signifies perception, recognition, insight, and creativity. We can be a ray of light, bring hope to a difficult situation, or do things with a light heart, radiating cheerfulness and optimism in a world. In the Kabbalistic view, our job is to gather the sparks of the divine scattered light, cocoon, and use them to help repair the world. You see a theme here? As the Jewish expression goes, a little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. Let me say that to my beloved colleague at WPI and to our professors at Clark and to our therapists and to our families. A little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. You do not have to change the world. You just have to be a spark that people recognize as an alternative to what they're experiencing. To be a vision of hope, to be a vision of courage, to be a vision that communicates to someone that they are worth being cared about and cared for and caring about themselves. So What do we do with this? For this, I turn to Rabbi Elliot Kukula. I love this story, right? It's so Unitarian. He writes, Sarah, as a member of my congregation, once explained to me why she was proudly a bad Jew. She had hated her traditional religious upbringing. As soon as she left home, she proudly embraced a fully secular lifestyle, although she eventually found her way back to Judaism through belonging to a liberal synagogue. Sarah told me that she was a member purely for cultural reasons because for connections to Jewish social justice values, and she still eschewed any form of religious observance. Let me tell you how bad I am, she says to her rabbi. I sleep late, and then I make bacon for breakfast and eat it slowly, savoring the smell and the flavor while reading the paper and catching up on how to be involved in world events. I look forward to that morning all week long. And then says the rabbi, I hate to tell this to you, but it sounds to me like you're keeping Sabbath. You know, setting aside that time. I think about Sabbath not so much as that thing that happens once a week. I think about Sabbath in terms of moments. Moments of attention and intention. Moments that bring a deeper sense of meaning to whatever it is we're doing. Barry and I had one such moment a week ago when we turned a small garden behind the YMCA into a place bearing the names of those who had died and the sentiments of those who loved them. It will no longer be a place that is just a garden. For many people who participate in that ritual and for those who participate in similar rituals coming after, that garden will have substantively more meaning. That walk that I took out behind Olean Street will no longer just simply be a place anymore. It will be a memory of places that held meaning and hold meaning for people. Not just an old road, but sacred space. The rabbi continues, on 6 days a week, on 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day we shall be Sabbath of complete rest and sacred occasion. He says, when Sarah sets aside time that feels sacred to her, both for her own pleasure and to connect empathetically to the people of the world around her, she unwittingly keeps the most essential commandment of Sabbath. I wonder about you, trotting into the fall with all of the myriad things that have been done. I wonder about us, not just in this place on Sunday morning, but about those moments to which you bring attention and intention, which is really the difference between darkness and dawn. To bring attention and intention into any experience is to move from that which is blind, or that from which we may be blind to that which is illumined because of the meaning that underscores the experience. Which suggests to us, to me at least, that we ought to all be about the business of listening more intently to where people give their attention and intention, in order that we might be illumined by that which is sacred to each of us. I'll leave you with that this morning. I want us to think about the attention and intention we give to each other. I want us to think about the courage and power of that particular play between attention and intention, and how we are with each other. And I want us to bring it to a bruised and hurting world, to each other, to our children, but most of all, to ourselves. and blessed be. You will find your order of service number 450 found in your hymnals. 540? 540, 450, come on. 540. The words of Rabindranath Tagore. Today the peace of autumn pervades the world. Spreading over the deserted fields to all horizons its wings of golden green. The many distant villages bask in the sun with eyes closed in idle and languid slumber. In every speck of dust, in every part of my body, in the visible and invisible worlds. To join together in our closing hymn, the words of which are found on the back of your order of service, and rise in body or in spirit. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to to everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to renew, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather souls together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. Time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. Andrew Pakula, another colleague, writes, "Let there be light. The light of joy, the light of happiness, the light of contentment. May it illumine our paths and fill our lives with peace. And let there be dark. For it is from our dark places that we are brought forward, tired and tested and impelled toward growth. It is in these places that we realize compassion and we learn to love. And there was day and there was night, and there was joy and there was sorrow. And it was good." Amen. Blessed be. So for at least 2 generations, maybe 3, anytime you bring up the idea of time in a public place, a particular experience comes to mind. For those of us who were in graduate school in New England around the Boston area, it meant going to the midnight showing of a particular movie in Cambridge at a particular theater that was open until ungodly hours in the morning. And there was a particular song in that particular venue that brought out the best of everyone, and it was about time. So we figured we might as well end our service in the same way. Reminding us that we are never too old, and remind you that there's soup to be had this morning, that you hope that you have a wondrous and wonderful week, that we'll see you back here next week, same bat time, same bat channel.